Over to you, Marie.
It does. Yeah, got it. Okay, excellent. Hello, Teresa. I'm going to just provide a quick background introduction for Azure. So good afternoon, and just share, as I said, share a little bit about Azure's background. Um, Azure is one of the founders and managing director of Castellan Information Security Services, which is based in Winnipeg. Azure has worked in the field of information technology for 25 years in many different business fields, such as education, agriculture, finance, telecommunications, healthcare, and insurance. Over the past decade, Azure has focused on providing security services. Understanding information and cybersecurity, why you need to protect your data and how to do it, is the title of today's talk. As you'll soon see, one of Azure's best qualities is his ability to explain something complex in a way that everyone can readily understand. Questions can be submitted in the chat window or saved for the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. I will tell you that Azure is always bang on in keeping us within the hour, including questions and answers. So we'll get started. Azure, I will turn it over to you officially as of right now.
Hey, thanks, Marie. I'm going to share my screen, so hopefully all that is good.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. All right, let's get started. And thanks for making the time. We know that it's hard to find time on people's calendars, but glad that you're here. And this video, like I mentioned earlier, will be available to the chamber to share with their membership going forward as well. The topic is important. There's no doubt that information security is one of the biggest challenges that businesses have right now. So what we want to do is make sure that we're able to share what we know with businesses like ours in the province. So just a little bit more about Castellan. We are a Winnipeg-based company. We are a Prairie-born and bred company. We provide end-to-end information security services, consultants, products, and essentially helping out our clients to make sure that their information is safe. We're also a member of the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce. That's why we're here, to support you and your members. And we've got extensive experience in many of the industries that you and your businesses operate in. We've got experience with federal law enforcement, crown corporations, telco, IT, financial services, banking, and so on. And you'll see all of those, including nonprofit and charitable organizations as well as professional associations. This is kind of our slide of pride, we like to call it, because this shows all the different certifications that our team has. These are all security certifications, with the exception of PMP, which is a project management professional certification. But this is our in-house expertise, and we're proud of this because this demonstrates that we have people with industry recognized certifications who are constantly refreshing their knowledge and their information. So we're not lagging in terms of the knowledge that our team has in terms of supporting our clients. What's the agenda for today? We're going to talk about a few of the information security myths. We're going to bust those myths. We're going to talk about a few trends as well. What are the impacts of a data breach? What happens to a business when and if a data breach happens? Threats to your information, we're going to talk about a couple of those as well. What's a good framework for security? As a leader, as a business owner, what do you need to have in mind in terms of developing good security? And then we're going to talk about some best practices for information security as well. And hopefully we'll have a few minutes left at the end for some Q&A as well that you may have. So what are some of these information security myths? Well, first of all, the first one that we run into typically is that cybersecurity risks are not real. That's a myth. That's not true. Cybersecurity risks are as real as any of the other risks that a business has to consider. If there's a fire in your warehouse, that's a risk that you prepare for. You prepare against that. Similarly, you have to take cybersecurity risks as real and prepare for those as well, because the consequences not addressing these risks can be devastating for a company. Kind of coming out of that, if you don't think these risks are real, then you're not going to know what the impacts are, or you think that the impacts are not significant. That's a myth, that the impacts of a data breach or a ransomware attack are not significant. They are very, very significant. One of the statistics that's quite quoted in the industry is that 2/3 or 3/4, actually, 3/4 of a small or mid-size or mid to large size organization that has a ransomware attack or a data breach attack happen will either suffer significant revenue losses in 18 to 24 months of the attack, or maybe even have to close their doors. So the impacts are significant when something like this happens. The other one, cybersecurity threats only apply to big businesses. Not true at all. I think what happens is we see the news, right? And the news will talk about Indigo and Sobeys and CRA and all of those things. And we think that's not us. And typically in the prairies, we think, hey, we're in the prairies. Who's going to bother us? We kind of take this lackadaisical approach, and that's not the right approach. Cybersecurity threats, the malicious actors, they're trying to find whoever's the most vulnerable target available to them, and they don't care about the geography, about the size of the company, about which sector you're in. They will attack you. So cybersecurity threats apply to any business of any size, any sector. Another one we hear is that information security is only about information technology. Again, not true. Information security should be about information. So whether you're taking customers' credit card numbers on a piece of paper and filing them, or if you're a physiotherapist's office or a doctor's clinic or a dentist, you've got patient information on paper, you're putting it in a filing cabinet, that needs to be protected. It's not just about IT, it's about information in any form. And the last one that we've been hearing quite a bit in the last 12 to 14, maybe 18 to 24 months, is that many leaders, many business owners are saying to us, I'm moving everything into the cloud, therefore my data is secure. They are saying that I don't have data on my computers in the office anymore. Everything is moving to the cloud, therefore it's secure. It's not secure. The cloud provider is responsible for providing you with security off the cloud, but you're still responsible for making sure that your data in the cloud is secure. So just because you've moved data from physical location in your office to the cloud, all that means is that you've changed addresses, you've changed locations for the data. You still have to have same security controls in place. So those are some of the myths, and we keep discovering more and more of these, but those are probably the 5 big ones that we run into all the time. Just a few numbers to kind of give you a scope of the breadth and depth of information security. So 66% of the businesses, small to mid-size and mid to large-size organizations, have suffered some kind of a cyber attack in the last 24 months. Now, what that means is it could be a phishing attempt, it could be a ransomware attempt, it could be someone trying to hack into your systems. But 2/3 of the companies have reported that they had some kind of an attack against their organization in the last 24 months. There is a ransomware attack around the world every 11 seconds. These numbers are from 2021, 2022. 2 years prior to that, in 2019, this number was around 14 seconds. So there was a cyber attack or a ransomware attack every 14 seconds around the world. So in just a matter of 2 years, the frequency or the number of attacks has gone up so much that it's shaved off 3 seconds around the world. And I think that by the time we get the numbers for 2023, this could be under 10 seconds in terms of the frequency of ransomware attacks. Less than $500 is what a small business typically spends on cybersecurity products, because what typically happens is, you sign up with your internet service provider, they give you a modem or a router, you plug everything into it, and off you go. It's not a commercial grade product, it's a consumer grade product. And what that's typically going to do is not secure your data as best as a commercial grade product should do. But that's what we spend typically on cybersecurity products. Some other statistics: $1. A malicious actor can go onto the dark web and buy a cybercrime toolkit to launch a cyber attack against anyone for just about $1. It used to be, in 2019, it used to be around $14, $15. But again, it's become so prevalent that the cost of these things is coming down like there's no tomorrow. $459 billion. That's what we are planning to spend globally, governments, big businesses, small businesses, on cybersecurity around the world by 2025. That's a big number, but the next number is kind of troubling. The size of the global crime economy by 2025 is 10.5 trillion. So 30 times the amount of what we're planning to spend on securing data, 30 times the payback for cyber criminals. That's not a good statistic, and that definitely needs to come down. There's some current trends that we wanted to talk about. I'm not going to go through every single bullet. I'm just going to hit some of the big ones. The first one is definitely a big one. There are more stringent laws around security now. The governments are becoming more and more serious in terms of what businesses need to do to protect consumer data, citizen data. So there are more and more penalties that are coming out as well. Canada was kind of lagging actually in that regard, but we've had a little bit of tightening of these rules as well. But that's definitely a trend that's going to continue into 2023 and going forward as well. Just third bullet: increase in demand for security skills and personnel. If you're considering a career change, or if you know someone who's looking for a long-term gainful employment in some sector, going into security is a great career path for them. We have quite a few organizations within Manitoba that can train the students to become security specialists, like Red River College, for example, in Winnipeg, or MITT, and there's colleges in Brandon as well, and so on, and other places as well that can help you get into that workspace. Fourth bullet: widespread adoption of the Internet of Things. What is that? What is IoT? Anything that connects to the internet. And pretty much everything is connecting to the internet, right? Your garage door opener has a Wi-Fi connection, your doorbell, your thermostat. And the thing is that with every single one of these, when you connect to the internet, it's basically an entry point, an egress point, or ingress point for a malicious actor to come in, unless your networks are secure. Even the coffee shops, or not coffee shops, but coffee makers, are now connected to the internet. I'm not sure why you need that, but that's the case. So because these consumer devices are becoming more and more connected to the internet, they're becoming bigger targets for the malicious actors as well. And the attackers are becoming smarter, they're becoming bolder, they're becoming more commercial and less traceable. I mentioned that you can buy a kit for $1 to become a cyber criminal, but some of those kits are priced at almost $80,000, $85,000, because these are full IT shops. They are developing malicious code. They have all the right practices in place to develop software, except that they're developing criminal software. So the attackers are becoming bolder and more commercial, and they're being funded heavily, like for nation state attackers, they're being funded heavily by their nations as well. And because of that, the breaches are now becoming more complex and harder to beat. And if you were tracking anything to do with Sobeys or Indigo, you would have noticed that it took them weeks, even up to maybe 10 weeks, before they could get back to getting their website up and running, or getting back to serving the customers through their online portals and stuff. And the last one, which is becoming more and more and more prevalent on a day-by-day basis, is cyber risk insurance is becoming the norm. Most insurance brokers are now asking the businesses, asking the clients to prove that they have good information security practices in place, tools in place, procedures in place, people in place, so they can get their premiums down. We were just speaking with someone actually a couple of weeks ago at a security conference, and this is one of our customers, and he mentioned that their insurance provider told them that they are seeing up to a 95% increase in premiums because the clients don't have proper security in place. Now, in case of our, and this is again kind of a badge of honor that we took away from him, but our customer told us that when they went to get their insurance renewed, they had a 0% increase because they were able to demonstrate that they were working with us, that over the last 3 years, they had been methodically putting in more and more security in place. So this year, when their insurance was renewed, there was a 0% change to their premium. But this is definitely becoming a bigger cost for businesses. What are some of the impacts? So when a data breach happens, what happens? Well, first of all, it hits your pocketbook. There's financial impacts. The cost of the average cost of a record that's been breached has gone up from $199 per breached record in 2020 to $224 Canadian in 2022. So 20% increase or 10% increase over the last 2 years. Now, that means if a hacker takes one record out of your system, that's how much you need to spend. But I don't know any business that only ever has one record. You may have one customer with 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 different records. So if you've got 10 breached records, your cost is $2,200. You've got 100 breached records, you're looking at $22,000. So the cost for recovery grows exponentially based on the number of records that were breached in the attack. The next row, the average cost to an organization, around just under $6 million Canadian for an organization to recover. I kind of take that with a bit of a grain of salt because that number will include the money that Indigo spent or Chapters spent or Sobeys spent on recovering. So it kind of inflates the number a little bit. But I think the takeaway is that in order for an organization to recover, the cost is sometimes astronomical and definitely puts a dent in the company's pocketbook. Because there are two reasons that happen. First of all, when there's a breach, you stop doing what you're doing. You stop selling, you stop producing what you're producing. And what happens with that is that there's a loss of revenue. But not only is there a loss of revenue, but you're also spending money for containment and for recovery. So you're not selling anything to make money, but anything that was in your savings account is being drained because you're trying to get your business up and running again. So again, you're being hit on both sides. So that's some of the financial impacts, but there's more impacts than just the impact to your pocketbook. There's litigation from affected customers. It's becoming unfortunately, becoming a little bit more prevalent in Canada to litigate a company if they cannot demonstrate that they did everything reasonably possible to protect your information. So customers are becoming more and more leery about that and doing litigation now as well. Some of the other bullets that you see, the tarnished reputation, damaged relationships, negative public perception, loss of trust, those are all reflections of the character of your company, right? And in our case, character means everything. We want to have a good reputation in our market space. We want to have good relationships with our suppliers, with our customers, with our employees. We want to have a positive perception in the public space. And we want to have trust. We want people to be able to trust to do business with us. And when a breach happens, all of those things are affected. You lose your reputation, your relationships are damaged, and you lose the trust in the marketplace. And all of that results in a loss of potential revenue for you. Someone who wants to do business with you They see that you don't take care of their private information, they may go to your competitors. There's also the exposure of intellectual property. If you've got a proprietary process or a proprietary product that you sell, if there's a breach and all of that information gets out in the wild, you've lost your competitive advantage. And the last one, obviously, is the legal action for breaches. The government is now going to fine you if you can't demonstrate that you've taken all reasonable steps to protect your customers' information. Especially, it's even worse if you're letting their data leave the country and go to a data warehouse in the States or in Asia somewhere or in South America. All of those things are very, very critical and definitely have an impact on a company after a breach happens. What are some of the threats to your information? There's two types, internal, external. Internal threats, we start with typically focusing on the employees. If you're in a proprietary space and somebody might hire a professional to come and be hired by your company, and their sole purpose is to infiltrate and take away the information that makes you a star in your sector. Maybe rare, but may not be as rare as you think. Malicious actors, or malicious employees, somebody didn't get the bonus that they thought they should get, or somebody didn't get the vacation that they wanted. Now they have a malicious intent now to somehow hurt the company in some way. So they do something that's not good for the company. There's also negligence. You train the employee on how to handle, for instance, credit cards and so on, but they didn't pay attention, or they didn't get trained properly, so they don't know what to do. So when they're processing information, they're not doing it properly. They're being negligent in their processes and so on, and of course that results in breach of information as well. And then there's compromise as well. You can have an employee who's been compromised for some reason or other, and they may be leaking out your information to your competitors and into the marketplace. There's mistakes. There's sloppy processes. If you don't, again, just going back to the credit card information, if you don't have a good documented process on how information should be received from a customer, how it should be processed, and how it should be destroyed, all of that can result as into an internal threat. Loss of equipment is another one, leaks. But I like to jump to the last one, storytelling and loose lips. So we're heading into the summer season, and what do? We sit around fireplaces, our fire pits. We talk to our family, talk to our friends, and other than sports, what else do we like to talk about? Work, right? And we share stories about work. And sometimes we don't think that maybe the information that we're sharing is actually confidential. Maybe it should not be shared in the open, in public with people, and it makes jobs for people like us, those social interactions, very awkward, because we can't talk about our customers or our clients. So we typically just sit there and listen at these fire pit gatherings. There's also the external threats, and this is typically the stuff that we hear more about. This is what the movies are made about. So hacking, that's kind of the general umbrella term for anything like that. Any malicious actor trying to gain access into your systems and so on. They look for security vulnerabilities and loopholes, and that's how they get into your systems. Malware, software that's designed to give someone unauthorized access into your system. And then ransomware, again, is software, but it has a very specific purpose. And the specific purpose is that once they've gained access into your system, they encrypt your data and basically holding hostage your systems, and they won't release the hostages until you've paid the ransom. So again, very, very prevalent, very, very common. Social engineering, so phishing is one example of that, where someone is trying to get you to reveal information about you, about your credentials, by posing as someone that you trust. It could be an organization like your bank, or a charity that you work with or donate to, or it could be some person that you trust, like your CEO or your friend or your sister or something like that. So social engineering is definitely another one of those external threats to be watching for. Physical theft of devices, very, very common, still one of the most prevalent ways that companies lose data. One of the practices that we had actually when I was working for Cargill was that we would be at the office, but we were required to put all of our stuff in the trunk of the rental car before we left the office. So, we work at the office through the day, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock rolls around, and it's time for supper. So instead of driving to a restaurant with the laptops and everything sitting in the back seat, everything was already out of sight in the trunk. So just simple things like that could be implemented to prevent password attacks. Someone is just trying to hack into your email, and all they're doing is trying password after password after password after password to see if something sticks. Denial of service attacks. This is a very violent attack because what it does is it basically overwhelms your systems to the point that they become unusable. And it's a big nuisance, but it can definitely affect a customer, affect a business. Man in the middle is another one that's very prevalent and not very well known. Man in the middle typically happens, or it always happens when, for instance, you go to a coffee shop, you log into their Wi-Fi and then you connect to your bank and so on, except that the Wi-Fi provided by the coffee shop is not secure, it's not safe. So anyone sitting by you or within range can actually insert themselves into that connection, and now they can see all of the traffic between your laptop and your bank or whatever you're connected with. They can grab your credentials, they can even place themselves in your system. So the man in the middle is a very, very, very common and prevalent attack, and it typically happens when you're using unprotected Wi-Fi connections like a coffee shop or the airport and so on. And rogue software, I won't spend too much time on that. By definition, it means you download something and it has malicious intent to harm your systems. So those are some of the threats to be mindful about. Some examples, I've already alluded to a couple of these. MyCloud is Western Digital is a big hard drive company. They have storage services as well, backup services. MyCloud is their backup service. That was attacked, that was taken down, and people could not access their data that was in MyCloud. Sobeys, we talked about. Indigo as well. Ends Brothers had a breach in 2021. The government of Manitoba, there was an employee who sent out an email and it was not properly secured, released information about 99,000 children in that. Nordic Spa, if you've been to Winnipeg, Thermea is the local spa here. They had a breach. Sunrise Credit Union had a breach as well. Altona Clinic had a ransomware attack, which shut down the clinic systems as well. And then locally here in Winnipeg, we have a long-term care facility called Saint Amand. They had a big breach as well. And thankfully, they were able to get their primary care systems up and running locally in their location, but they could not connect to any of the hospitals or any of the shared health systems because their systems were completely cut off. Your shared health would not allow them to connect to shared health systems until they had proven that everything had been secure, everything had been purged, and it took months for them to get to that point. So you can imagine the chagrin that all the staff and people had at Saint Amand. So what's a framework? What's a good framework for information security? As a leader, as an owner of a business, what should you be looking out for? So think of this as a triangle. There are 3 points that you always have to have in mind, and the 3 things that you should be considering when you're thinking about information security. The first thing is governance. It's your processes, it's your policies, it's your standards. You have to have good policies, good processes, good standards in place that everyone follows, and you have to apply them consistently. You also have to have good products, good technology that can protect you, not the $49.99 special at your local electronics store for a router or a modem or something, but something commercial for your company. And then the last one are people. You have to invest in your people to make sure that they're trained on the policies, they're trained on the products, and then they're trained to detect if there is an attack in progress, and they're trained on what to do if that is happening. So what are some of the best practices that you should be thinking about and keeping in mind? Um, Implement a formal information security policy. And I know it sounds big, it sounds like only big companies should do it, but just a simple information security policy, which talks about stuff like, hey, we're going to give you a company laptop, or we're going to give you access to company systems. Here's a technology use agreement that you have to sign. What's the password management policy? A non-disclosure agreement, a non-compete agreement, things like that are easy to implement, and they themselves can actually be a big deterrent for someone who might be planning to do harm to the company. You also have to know all of your information assets. Where do you store data? Where do you store information? Computers, laptops, everybody talks about that. People are aware of that. And as they're moving to the cloud, they know that their data is in the cloud and so on. They know about the filing cabinets. But the one thing that I've never actually met a business owner who gave me the right answer on this one is around printers and fax machines. No one thinks about printers and fax machines as data storage units. Probably for a couple of decades now, anytime you're faxing something or anytime you're printing something, there's a hard drive in those machines that takes an image of the document, and that image stays on that hard drive till the end of time. So when a fax machine has run out of life, is at the end of life, and you decide to dump it or throw it into the garbage bin, all the data, every single thing that you received and faxed out on that machine is being thrown out into that dumpster. So just a good practice to make sure that you remove those hard drives or you destroy those hard drives is critical. Software. Where do you store information when it comes to software? Your financial systems, your spreadsheets. Do you have Microsoft Word forms that you're using? What do you do with them? So you have to know every piece of technology and non-technology where you store information. You also have to know what type of information you're storing. So you have to be able to identify and classify the data that you're collecting. You can have highly sensitive information like government issued IDs, driver's licenses, social insurance number, health card number, personally identifiable information, your date of birth, your personnel data, your employees' bank information, and things like that. You have to know what type of information you collect, and you have to be able to classify it, because not all information is the same. It needs to be classified so you can have proper handling procedures depending on the classification of the data. You also have to know what type of financial data that you collect: credit card information, banking information, payroll for your employees, credit card information for your customers that are paying you with their credit cards, but also your credit cards that you're paying your suppliers with, banking information, and so on. You need to know where and what type of financial data you're collecting. You also have to have regular security training for employees. I cannot stress this enough. You have to have regular security training for employees. One of the things that one of our staff just discovered yesterday, this was fantastic, by the way, was that in Winnipeg, if you have a library card for one of the Winnipeg public libraries, you can use that and access free training on LinkedIn. I was not aware of that. It was one of our staff who discovered it yesterday and shared it with the rest of the company. But what a great way to provide free training to your employees. I'm not sure what it would be like in Dauphin or in your region, but worth exploring to make sure that your employees are being trained properly. Also, always conduct internal audits and vulnerability assessments. This should be a regular activity because those vulnerability assessments expose where you are vulnerable, where you're exploitable, and then you can do something about protecting yourself. So one of the best practices is to have a vulnerability assessment done regularly on your systems. Penetration testing is another one, and it's a little bit more aggressive than vulnerability assessment. This is where, for instance, one of our technical folks will actually try to exploit the vulnerabilities and try to get as far and as deep into a customer's systems as they possibly can without damaging them, obviously, but they want to be able to see how far a malicious actor can get into your system. So penetration testing, again, is also a regular practice that you should have on your calendar. And then also invest in updating your technology assets. I've already talked about the router, for example. Instead of the $49.99 or the $99.99 special at your local electronics store, buy something that's commercial grade. And think of this as an investment in preventing a technology break-in or something like that. And the same idea is on the physical side. If you have file folders that contain customer data or business critical data, where are they stored? Where are these file folders kept? Is there a lock on each file folder or filing cabinet, for example? What's the type of door? Is it a hollow core $39 door at Home Depot, or is it a commercial grade door with proper locks, proper hinges, proper frames and stuff? So think about all of these physical investments as a prevention measure and as an investment to make sure that you're safe. I think we're getting pretty close to the end here. Have a good password management policy. You've got to have a good password management policy and to make sure that it is enforced so that people are practicing it and making sure that their systems aren't easily breakable or their credentials aren't easily breakable. Establish a formal process for onboarding new employees. Make sure you do police background checks if they're going to be handling financial stuff, doing credit checks and so on. So please make sure you've got formal processes for that, but also for employees when they're leaving the company. When they leave the company, when they give you their notice, collect all the things that you've given them, the laptops, the computers, keys, credit cards, all of those things, and remove all of their access to the corporate systems. You should have a process in place to make sure that you change their password as soon as you feel comfortable doing that. So make sure that those processes are in place as well. And establish a business continuity plan and disaster recovery plan. If a disaster happened, if a breach happened, how would you recover? How would you make sure that your business continues to operate? Have those plans developed and then test them to make sure that they actually make sense and they are actually executable. They're actually doable. Create and support a culture of information security. If you're a leader, it starts with you. You have to demonstrate that information security is a serious business. You can tell your employees, your staff to do security, but if they don't see you doing it, your words will mean nothing. So you have to support that in your actions as well. And establishing policies and practices for non-IT records. How are you accessing them? How are you storing them? How are you destroying them? You have to have practices around that as well. And then lastly, understanding the damage to your organization. If a breach happens, what is the worst thing that can happen to your organization? You have to know that, because that knowledge is going to help you develop the right responses for when that data breach happens or when that security incident happens. So you have to know what your responses are going to be. What can you do? It can be overwhelming, but you can start by educating yourself and your staff. That's absolutely key number one. You also have to recognize that your IT team or your service provider may need external help. They may be a really good IT person or a really good IT service provider, but they may not have security expertise. So you have to recognize that they may need some extra help as well. Remember that you are still responsible for securing data in the cloud. Even though you put it there, you're still responsible. You're still accountable. Change your organization's culture regarding information security. We talked about that just a moment ago. Understand the value of the data that you collect. You have to know how valuable that data is and what you need to do with that. And then develop a plan that gives you incremental steps. Not everything can be done on day one. You have to have incremental steps that fit your capacity, your budget, the size of your company, your capability on implementing those, but have an incremental step, a roadmap to implement those things. Do vulnerability discovery and security gap discovery. Once you know what those vulnerabilities are, then you can have a remediation plan. You can address and start closing these doors that people can walk through and destroy your business and your systems. And then, of course, establish some targets for improving the overall security of your organization. Like I said, create a roadmap. In 6 months' time, we'll have these things in place. In 12 months' time, we'll have some additional security controls in place. So have a targeted roadmap that you're going to be following. And most importantly, don't get overwhelmed. Quite often, business leaders, they just get overwhelmed because this is such a big topic. But all we're asking you to do is to just start somewhere. If you start somewhere and you make one of the changes, for instance, that I recommended in the best practice, you're better than you were yesterday. So just start somewhere. How can we help? Like I said, we are an end-to-end information security service provider. There's quite a few of our services that you see on the screen, but maybe I'll just focus on 4 that might be of interest for you. So top left corner, vulnerability assessment. So we can scan your systems for vulnerabilities. We can do it constantly, or we can do it on a one-time basis, or we can do it on a subscription model. So every first week of each month, we scan your systems, we provide you with the report, and if you have your own IT team, they can go and remediate those, or we can help you with those as well. So vulnerability assessment is something we do. We also do penetration testing to, again, try to see how far a malicious actor can get into your systems, and then help you close those gaps, close those loopholes in your systems. Going over to the other side of the screen, our flagship product is the integrated information security assessment. This looks at the entire business. So your governance, your policy, how you handle paper, what your disaster recovery, business continuity planning looks like. We can do that assessment and provide you with some recommendations there as well as a timeline on how best to implement those. And the last one, which is our newest service that we launched just a few months ago, is our Security Operations Center. And what a Security Operations Center does is we install an agent on your computers, and what it does is it takes the system logs, sends those to our center, our SOC, and essentially our analysts, our software is looking for malicious activity, anything that's anomalous. It's looking for that, and it helps us to monitor your systems. It helps us to detect if there's something malicious going on, or if something is getting ready to go malicious. And then it helps us to protect you by preventing it from going forward. Or if an attack is in progress, it helps us to detect and contain it as well, so that it doesn't spread to all of your systems. So those are our some of our services, and you can find out more on our website. We have a couple of offers for the chamber and for the membership of the chamber. First one, just talked about the Security Operations Center. So what we're offering is a 90-day trial. It's very easy to onboard a company to come on board and start monitoring their systems. But we're offering a 90-day trial service for up to 10 computers or 10 systems in your company, where our folks will be monitoring your systems. If they detect anything malicious, they'll let you know, they'll help you protect, and so on. And after the 90 days, there's no commitment for you to continue on. If you like the service, we would love to continue to provide you with that extra layer of security. If you don't, we can shake hands and part ways, but hopefully that won't be the case. We're pretty confident in our service, but on our part, there is absolutely no expectation of a commitment beyond the 90 days. So that's first offer, a 90-day trial of our SOC. By the way, it's called Crimson Shield, which is a very cool name, by the way, that we think. And the second offer that we have is this free security assessment. It's kind of a subset of the integrated information security framework that we talked about briefly. Essentially, it will look at your policies, procedures, technologies, and so on. It's a questionnaire that we send out. We can help you fill it out as well, and definitely something to think about. We can take care of that as well for you. We can help you with doing this assessment to give you some recommendations to address the gaps that we would discover. And same as the SOC offer, there is absolutely no commitment or expectation of commitment to carry on after the assessment has been done. One of the things that I don't have on the deck here is the Digital Manitoba Initiative, which was a program where smaller companies could get funded to do an assessment like this, and we've been approved by the chambers to provide that service. I'm not sure if it's going to be launched again or not. But again, keep your eyes open, keep looking at your chamber's website or the other communication around the chambers, and see if that program gets kicked off. If it does, we would love to help you, prepare your application, submit your application, and so on, and then help you do the assessment as well. How do you contact us? Online, you can go to castellaninformationsecurity.com. You can send an email to our general mailbox, info@castellaninformationsecurity. You can check us out on LinkedIn. You can reach out to any of the three gents that you've got at the bottom of the screen there, besides myself, Murray, and Brent. Or you can just do a quick Google search or your favorite search engine search. Look for cybersecurity firm, information security firm in Manitoba, and we should be fairly close to the top, if not at the top. So just coming up to our conclusion here, information security applies to all organizations. We talked about that. So think about that it's not just the big businesses. It's applicable to everyone. Good security is a combination of physical security, cybersecurity, and governance. I don't think I have governance on the slide, but governance would be another piece, and that's the procedures and policies to have in place. This is our mantra that we live by, the third bullet. Prevention is better than remediation. $1 spent in prevention can save you $10, $20, $30 in remediation. So think prevention, think preparation, think prevention, and that will translate to good protection. Culture change starts at the top. You have to lead the charge. If you're an owner, if you're a leader, you have to lead the charge in your organization. And the one last thing that I'd like to leave you with is, as a leader, as an owner, can you assure your stakeholders, your customers, your employees, your suppliers, and so on, that you are doing everything you can to protect the information that they have trusted you with? I think the answer to that question is going to help you decide what you want to do in terms of information security within your organization. I think that's the end of my talk, but we're open for questions. And Murray, if you can watch the chat, or if you can
I have been.
questions.
Yes. Azar,
Yes,
Teresa asked a question during the presentation about insurance companies. Do all insurance companies offer the option of cyber insurance?
pretty much all of them do now. Yeah, I think about
Okay.
3 or 4 years ago, let's say 5 years ago, it was a specialized product. But now pretty much every insurance broker, every insurance company has a product for cybersecurity or cyber insurance.
Okay. Okay. So the likelihood of a business or an organization, they would be able to go to their existing provider and ask that question.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
Do we have a list
Of
of insurance companies?
you've got some of the big players in the marketplace, right? You've got the Intacts and TD and Bowanisa and Great West Life and all of those, right? But typically your insurance broker or your insurance provider
Can direct. Yeah.
will do that. In our case, for example, when we are renewing the insurance, we fill out this questionnaire, and the insurance company that we deal with, they go out to their network and find out which big company has the best protection for us. So they come back to us, and sometimes it's intact, sometimes it's Wabanisa and so on, but they have access to all the products and packages and providers that you would need.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Steve, any questions?
Nothing that came to mind. Um, one kind of process, I guess, like I don't know, for backups and storage and stuff like that. Like, yeah, there's vulnerabilities, I guess, with everything that happens, but um, benefits for like having an online type of backup storage or having an external hard drive. Excuse me, an external hard drive that's physical in an office location, which
Yeah.
which are kind of like the best realms to go.
Yeah, both have merits for, both have pros and cons. For instance, in case of an external hard drive, it's right there, it's physically available to you. You can kick off the backup and then you can remove it physically. As long as you're not leaving it in the same building or the same office of the system where the system is that you're backing up. I think with the physical hard drive, you have to be very intentional about making sure that the actual backup is being stored in a different physical location.
Mm-hmm.
The advantage of a cloud-based backup is obviously that right away it's removed from your physical premises, right? It's not on site anymore. The disadvantage is who is the cloud provider or who's the backup service provider. It has to be your company that's reputable, that's got longevity in the industry. But even that may not be as relevant because we talked about Western Digital's my cloud service. Western Digital is one of the biggest names when it comes to storage, right? But even they had a cybersecurity incident. So I would almost propose. I'm a big proponent personally of physical backups. So we use a cloud service called Sync for all of our storage, and we use Sync because it's a Canadian company, sync.com. It's a Canadian company. Their claim to fame, their commitment to their customers is that they have all their data stored in Canada, which is very important for us. So we use their cloud service for storage, but I also have a physical hard drive that I back up all our contracts, employee paperwork, and so on. I do that once a week, and then I take it to our bank and I put it in the lockbox. But then I have a second hard drive, so I put the newest one in the lockbox. I remove the one that was there, bring it home with me, and then on a Friday or Saturday morning, I'll do the backup, go to the bank, swap the hard drives. So you have to have a little bit more discipline and process if you are going to do physical hard drives. Now, the only other thing you might want to consider if you want to get away from physical hard drives completely is to have two cloud services as your backups, right? So you get your primary one, but then have a backup of a backup in a second service provider that has nothing to do with the first service provider. So that could be another option where you're not dealing with physical hard drives. You're doing cloud-based backups, but the vendors or the providers are completely separate entities. So if one is attacked, your data is still secure in the other one. Hopefully that answers your question, Steve.
Nope, absolutely. Perfect.
It was a good solution, Cesar. Thank you. I don't know if there's any other questions this moment. I think we probably good to wrap it up, Azar.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for your time. We've really appreciated you being here. That was very kind of you all.
Yeah, thanks, gentlemen.
I agree. I can only repeat what Azar said. So thank you.
Yeah.
And Steve will be in touch. Okay.
Yeah, sounds great.
I'll send you the link when it's ready. And in the meantime, have a great day.
Yeah, you guys too.